Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into some really expansive ideas, concepts that might sound a bit like cosmic poetry, light, geometry, balance.
Right. Big ideas.
Exactly. And we're exploring how they might actually be practical tools for, well, shaping a better future. You've sent in this amazing collection of sources that really dig into this.
Yeah, they cover a lot of ground, looking at the philosophical side, the math behind it, and even getting into some pretty advanced physics like quantum entanglement.
Which is fascinating how they try to connect these seemingly really different fields.
Absolutely. It's not just about, appreciating nice patterns. It's really investigating if these fundamental principles, light, geometry, offer a whole new way to understand reality.
And maybe even build reality, from our own well-being right up to, well, the universe itself.
That's the core question running through these sources, yeah.
Okay, so our mission in this deep dive is basically to unpack all of that, pull out the most compelling ideas on how light and geometry could give us this new framework, see how they might inform what we do.
And we should probably say some of these concepts, they can really stretch the mind. We're touching on stuff that's right at the edge.
Definitely sounds like it.
But, the goal is clarity. We want to focus on the practical insights, hit those aha moments without getting totally lost in technical terms.
Right, keep it grounded, even when talking about the cosmos. Okay, let's unpack this. The sources start pretty tangibly, right? Looking at practical applications first.
Yes. The first big area is how we can actually use light, geometry, and balance in everyday life. And a key starting point seems to be sacred geometry in design.
Sacred geometry, I've heard the term. What's the core idea? Is it just about making things look good, or is there something more functional?
Well, that's the key point the sources make. It's not just aesthetics. The idea is that nature itself uses specific geometric patterns very efficiently.
Okay.
And by consciously using these patterns in our homes, our cities, even gardens, we might create spaces that inherently support well-being and balance. Think the golden ratio.
Ah, yes, 1.618,
Right.
roughly.
Exactly. It pops up everywhere in nature, shells, branches, galaxies. The idea is its presence suggests a kind of fundamental efficiency, a harmony we can tap into.
So using it in design aligns us with that natural harmony.
That's the thinking. Same with things like the flower of life pattern, those overlapping circles representing interconnectedness, or the Fibonacci sequence.
Where each number adds the 2 before it.
Right, which shows up in spirals in nature like seeds in a sunflower or petals on a flower. Using these isn't just symbolic. The sources suggest it's like aligning with nature's own blueprint.
Okay, so it's like speaking the universe's visual language to create spaces that feel right, that resonate. Now, the sources also talk about light, not just as energy, but as information, too. How does that become practical?
That's a really powerful thread.
Yeah.
Light is seen as, yes, energy, warmth, visibility, but also as this fundamental carrier of information that interacts deeply with matter.
Right.
Practically, that goes from simply appreciating sunlight for health, our sleep cycles, vitamin D, to specific therapies like red light therapy for healing.
Okay, I've heard of that.
But it goes deeper into this concept of light-coded intention.
Light-coded intention. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds intriguing. What exactly does that mean?
The idea, and it is quite out there for some, is that you can potentially influence matter, say water, or even a physical space, by combining a clear intention with a specific geometric form, and then exposing it to light, particularly sunlight.
How would that work?
The theory is that the light acts as a kind of carrier wave. It picks up the intention, which is given structure by the geometry, and imprints it onto the matter. It sort of echoes ancient practices, charging things through ritual and nature.
So light is the delivery system for intention structured by geometry.
That's the essence of it. A way to consciously use the subtle properties of light and geometry to maybe influence our surroundings.
Wow, giving intentions a structure and an energy boost. Okay, the sources also flip geometry around not just for designing things, but as a tool for thinking. How does that work?
Yeah, this is about using the clarity and order inherent in geometric shapes to help our own minds. For instance, thinking about a goal using a triangle.
How so?
Well, maybe the points represent different facets of the goal. The what, the why, the how. It encourages a balanced look. Or using different shapes for decisions. A circle for brainstorming all options. A square for logical steps. Maybe a spiral for mapping out growth.
So using the shapes as mental frameworks.
Exactly. To organize thoughts, gain perspective. And when building systems, applying geometric principles like symmetry, modularity, flow that can lead to more robust, efficient designs, using those archetypes to bring order to our thinking.
Like mental blueprints based on universal shapes. I like that. And then there's balance. The sources call it a master principle, even saying math is a language of balance. What does that mean practically?
It means seeing harmony and equilibrium as fundamental everywhere. The math connections suggest these aren't just nice ideas, but inherent universal principles.
So how do we apply that?
Practically, it's about avoiding extremes, recognizing interconnectedness, not letting technology dominate nature, for instance, not chasing profit without considering fairness and value,
Right, finding that middle ground.
and respecting natural cycles.
Yeah.
Day-night, seasons, effortrist. These rhythms are key for sustainability. It's about working with the universe's inherent balance, not against it.
Makes perfect sense, living in rhythm. Now, they also mention using light and geometry together to align our vision, our goals. How would we actually do that?
This ties back to visualization and intention. The idea is to consciously place your goals within a geometric framework. Maybe visualize them inside a grid or a mandala you draw,
Okay.
and then actively charge that visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Focus your attention on it, maybe meditate on it, or even literally place a drawing of it in sunlight.
So the geometry gives it structure, the light gives it energy, and intention gives it direction.
Precisely. It's thought that our subconscious responds to these fundamental patterns and energies. So doing this might amplify our inner drive, make the vision more potent, more likely to manifest, fine-tuning our internal compass, essentially.
Mapping the future as geometry energized by light. Very cool. And this builds towards a really big idea. Universal architecture for a new Earth. Sounds ambitious. What's the core concept?
It is ambitious. It's proposing we consciously design everything, our schools, cities, tech, economies, based on these principles we've been discussing.
So using resonance, coherence, light, geometry.
Yes. Designing with resonance, aiming for coherence, using light-based flow and transparency, embedding geometric clarity. It's like designing the operating system for a better world, using nature's own design language.
Wow. Okay, so just to recap this first big chunk, the sources offer this light geometry toolkit. Could you quickly bullet point the main takeaways?
Sure. First, geometry isn't just looks, it's functional code for design, learn its language. Second, light isn't just for seeing. It carries info, energy, intention, use it to heal, energize, program. Third, balance is the master rule. Seek equilibrium for sustainability.
Okay.
Fourth, pattern is power, recognize and work with nature's patterns. And fifth, simplicity holds depth. Elegant, fundamental rules govern the universe.
Fantastic summary. That gives us a solid, practical foundation. Now, the sources shift gears, moving into where physics meets philosophy. This is where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit mind-bending. Let's start with light as the ultimate messenger. What's the physics angle on that?
Yeah, this is where light gets elevated. It's not just a phenomenon, it's the universe's speed limit, right? The link between space and time.
Because nothing with mass can reach it.
Exactly. And the sources highlight this idea that from light's own perspective, if it had one, emission and absorption are simultaneous. It experiences no time.
Whoa, okay.
So it's like light exists outside our flow of time, weaving space-time together.
Yeah.
It carries the structure of information across the cosmos. And because it travels in straight lines, essentially, unless bent by gravity,
It maps out the shape of space.
it reveals the geometry, the curvature of the cosmos itself. Understanding light seems key to understanding reality's fabric.
It's the universe communicating with itself, structuring itself. Okay, now this idea of geometry as code, that sounds fascinating, especially mentioning string theory. What's the concept?
This is the idea that geometry might not just describe the universe, but could be the language it's written in. Think about the Platonic solids.
The 5 perfect shapes.
Right. Ancient thinkers saw them as fundamental building blocks.
Yeah.
Or sacred geometry patterns appearing everywhere. Or fractals, complex patterns from simple rules.
Okay.
The suggestion is these aren't just descriptions. They might be the source code dictating how matter forms, how energy flows. The string theory connection is interesting because, well, simplifying hugely.
Please do.
It suggests reality is made of tiny vibrating strings. And how they vibrate, plus the geometry of the hidden dimension they exist in, determines what particles we see. So geometry becomes foundational.
So the universe might literally be built from geometric code. Wow. If that's the case, how does our perception fit in? The sources mention perception as a geometric reconstruction. What does that mean for how we see things?
Right. Our brains don't just passively soak up light. They actively interpret it using geometry. We figure out depth, shape, symmetry, movement by decoding the geometric info carried by photons.
So our reality is a geometric reconstruction.
In a very real sense, yes,
Yeah.
based on the light hitting our eyes. And then the sources take another leap, speculating that consciousness itself might be rooted in geometry,
Consciousness as geometry.
maybe a kind of geometric projection, organizing our experience of time and space into awareness. It hints that light, geometry, and consciousness are maybe deeply interwoven parts of one reality.
That is truly mind-bending, our awareness tied to fundamental code, which leads to the final twist here. The universe learning through light, remembering through geometry, with consciousness as the interpreter. Can you unpack that idea?
It kind of pulls all these threads together. Light carries new information, new experiences throughout the universe.
Okay.
As this information interacts with things, it gets encoded, stored, remembered within geometric forms, like structures or patterns.
Like memory is stored shape.
In a way, yeah. And then consciousness, in all its forms, not just human, interprets these geometric patterns, extracts meaning, and drives evolution. It circles back to balance, suggesting math, geometry, energy are all parts of a deeper harmony.
Constantly being learned via light, remembered via geometry, and understood via consciousness.
That's the grand picture the sources paint, a dynamic, learning universe.
Wow. Okay, that sets the stage beautifully for the next part. Using this cosmic framework for practical creation. Moving into the HOW, how do we actually bring things into reality using this lens?
Right, this is about actionable steps now. The sources outline a kind of layered process. It starts with perceive the pattern.
Mina.
Basically, use geometry to visualize what you want to create. See its structure, its balance, the relationships within it. Use mandalas, spirals, platonic solids as mental templates. Give the idea a geometric form from the get-go.
So structure the concept geometrically first. Got it.
Exactly. Step 2, charge with intention and light. Here, light is the carrier for both energy and your focused intent.
Okay, like we discussed with light-coded intention.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Focus your will. Maybe while visualizing that geometric pattern, maybe expose it to actual sunlight. You're imbuing the pattern with energy and direction.
Geometric blueprint charged up. What's next?
Align with coherence. This is crucial. It means
Yeah.
creating resonance and harmony at all levels, biological, mental, environmental, minimizing friction, static, ensuring a clear signal for a clear result.
Getting everything in sync, like tuning an instrument.
Good analogy. Creating that state of inner and outer alignment with the intention. Optimal flow.
Coherence.
Mm.
Minimizing interference. Okay, next step.
Balance, inputs and outputs. Applying that master principle of balance, like a healthy system, no excess, no deficit.
How do we do that?
Work with natural rhythms, seasons, breath cycles. Create sustainable flow. Don't force things. Harmonize with natural energies.
Align with the natural ebb and flow. Makes sense. Then energize it. What's that involve practically?
This is about actively boosting the usable energy in the system. Could be anything from nutrition, breathing techniques, movement, beneficial light frequencies, maybe even magnetic fields.
So biological energy plus focused consciousness.
That's the idea. Real power comes from that combination.
Okay, pattern, intention, coherence, balance, energy. Final step.
Measure the density of meaning. This is about prioritizing quality over quantity. Choosing ideas, systems, expressions that pack the most information, the most significance, into the simplest, most elegant form.
Like a haiku versus a rambling paragraph.
Exactly. Or the information richness in a tiny seed spiral versus a random scribble. Strive for simplicity that holds deep intelligence.
Simplicity carrying profound meaning. I like that frame. Okay, so that's the HOW. What about the what? What's the ultimate goal of creating with this framework?
The sources paint a picture of creating a whole new way of being, new systems that are fundamentally different. They'd be self-sustaining through balance, they'd evolve naturally through resonance, communicate clearly with high information density, and run on clean, abundant energy, both human and environmental. A holistic vision for a thriving world.
That's comprehensive, and it applies across different areas of life.
Yes, absolutely. To our mindset, fostering clarity, intuition. To health regenerative, energy-rich biology. To cities designed as coherent, geometry-guided ecosystems.
Technology, too.
Yeah, tech that's pattern-aware, resonant, efficient, education based on patterns, rhythms, visual geometry, relationships built on transparency, harmony, and ultimately, human evolution cultivating light-aware, energy-balanced individuals.
A truly integrated vision. Now, to build this, we need tools and materials. With what, as the sources put it? What are these resources?
It's a blend of ancient wisdom and modern tech, used consciously. Energy sourced like breath, movement, light, Earth's own fields.
Okay.
Coherence cultivated through heart-brain alignment, using geometric templates, harmonic rhythms, information density via light-encoded visuals, meaningful symbols, powerful stories.
And geometry and light themselves.
Fundamental tools used in designing living structures, working with mirrors, prisms, light-coded systems, and finally, integrating tech and biology, wearable coherence monitors, biofeedback, maybe even AI guided by natural patterns.
A very intentional toolkit. And there's even a master formula that pulls it all together.
Yes, it's presented symbolically as energy plus coherence, plus meaningful density, plus geometric flow, plus light, sustainable creation.
So those 5 elements are the keys.
They're seen as the fundamental building blocks and the levers we can use to consciously create a sustainable future, from the personal to the planetary scale.
Powerful. Okay, now the sources get into the math underlying all this, going behind the curtain to see the language governing this framework. Let's start with the math of energy.
Right, the fundamental equations. It starts basic. Energy is the capacity to do work. Power is the rate energy is used. Then, of course, EC/MC fui. Matter and energy are equivalent.
Right, Einstein's famous one.
But also crucial is Planck's equation.
Mm.
EHE self energy equals Planck's constant times frequency.
Why is that one so important here?
Because it directly links the frequency of light, or any electromagnetic wave, to the energy it carries. Higher frequency means more energy. This pops up again and again when we talk about coherence and light-carrying information.
Got it. Frequency Lebry level. Now, the math of coherence, what defines that mathematically?
Coherence is mostly about how waves interact. When waves are in phase peaks line up, troughs line up, they add together. Constructive interference, stronger, organized wave.
And when they're out of phase?
They cancel out, destructively interfere. Noise, jumble. Coherence measures that constructive alignment, the order in the wave system. Think of a laser beam versus a regular light bulb.
Laser is coherent light.
Exactly. Highly ordered. Mathematically, things like the Fourier transform help analyze the coherence in complex waves. And high coherence usually means low entropy, low disorder, and high usable energy.
Order at the wave level means focused, useful power. Okay, moving to the math of geometry, what key concepts stand out?
This is about the math embedded in natural forms. The golden ratio, phi, about 1.618, defined by that proportional equation A plus B equal AB equals phi. It shows up in growth patterns, spirals.
We see it everywhere.
Then the Fibonacci sequence 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, adding the last 2 numbers. It closely approximates the golden ratio and appears in plant structures like petal counts or seed arrangements.
Right.
Fractals too, with their self-repeating patterns. And the 5 platonic solids, perfect 3D shapes, see it as geometrically fundamental.
It's amazing how these abstract math concepts are physically there in nature. Now, the math of light itself, building on E.
It reinforces that photons are energy packets, acting as both waves and particles, EAE or EG, where lambda is wavelength.
So frequency and wavelength are inversely related.
Yes, higher frequency, shorter wavelength, more energy. The sources also mention encoding data onto light by modulating its frequency, like radio waves. Different frequencies, different colors, different energy levels.
Understood. Crucial links between light's properties, energy, and information capacity. What about the math behind information density? That seemed key for efficiency.
Yeah, this often connects to Shannon entropy, a way to mathematically measure uncertainty or information content. The core idea, without getting lost in the formula, is that lower entropy means less randomness, more predictability, and therefore more meaningful information packed in.
Like compressing a file.
Exactly. High information densities like that compressed file, lots of meaning in a small package. Like the intricate pattern in a seed, the sources use the phrase compression informs.
Wisdom.
Distilling complexity into elegant, concise forms. I like that. What about the math of balance and feedback? How do systems maintain stability mathematically?
Balance relates to concepts like equilibrium, homeostasis. Feedback loops are key mathematically. Negative feedback stabilizes. Think of a thermostat, keeping temperature steady. It counteracts deviations.
Positive feedback amplifies change, can lead to growth or instability if unchecked. And concepts like critical damping describe the optimal feedback for returning to balance quickly without overshooting. These models help understand system stability and adaptation.
The math behind how systems stay steady or change? Finally, living math and the biogeometry link. What math applies specifically to life?
This highlights how living things embody math. Thermodynamics for energy flow. Nonlinear dynamics for complex, sometimes chaotic biological behavior. Harmonic resonance systems vibrating strongly at certain frequencies seems vital for biological communication.
And quantum effects.
Increasingly, yes. Quantum coherence maintaining quantum states over distance might be happening in photosynthesis, maybe even bird navigation. And as we said, the golden ratio in DNA's helix. Life seems deeply mathematical and geometric.
Life as applied math and geometry in motion, and this all culminates in that symbolic, unified equation of creative reality. Can you break down its parts again?
Sure, it's symbolic, remember, but tries to show the interplay. Reality, C,
Yeah.
E, A, E, is the MCTADT.
So let's translate.
EF is usable energy based on frequency. C is coherence based on wave alignment, is meaningful information density. XYZET is geometric form evolving in spacetime. L is light is energy info based on wavelength. And integrating over time shows it's a dynamic process.
So energy X, coherence X, meaning X, geometry X, light, all interacting over time creates reality.
That's the symbolic representation, yeah, showing how intertwined these fundamental elements are.
Beautifully put, even if abstract. Now let's shift to maybe the most captivating ideas, eternal life and infinite energy. How do the sources frame everlasting life?
They redefine it. It's not just living forever in one body. It's seen as a state of continuous renewal, biological and energetic, sustained coherence of form, unimpeded flow of full-spectrum energy, and resonance with the source.
So like a system in perfect dynamic balance.
Exactly. Where negentropy, order, constantly overcomes entropy, disorder. Regeneration beats decay. Perpetual vibrant flow, not stagnation. It's ongoing rejuvenation, not being frozen.
Perpetual renewal, not just immortality.
Okay.
And infinite energy. How is that reframed?
Again, not just limitless electricity. It's about tapping into the zero-point field, the vacuum energy, coherently extracting free energy from reality structure, self-sustaining systems, aligning our inner field with universal coherence.
And mathematically.
It's suggested as energy approaching its potential limit as frequency rises, multiplied by perfect coherence, meaning zero energy loss. Think lasers, superconductors, maybe even DNA information storage as analogies for high efficiency.
So these might be inherent universal properties we could potentially tap into, not just sci-fi.
That's the perspective in these sources. Potentials we're just beginning to explore. And they suggest ways to engineer these states. Let's start with engineering everlasting life, or that state of renewal.
What are the proposed methods?
Several key angles. One is living geometry, promoting DNA resonance, maybe with a golden ratio, designing fractal environments, creating beneficial toroidal fields around us.
Okay.
Another is high coherence inputs, structured water, biophoton-rich foods, specific sound frequencies like 528 hertz or 432 hertz, certain breath practices.
Things that bring order into the system.
Right. Also enhancing cellular light communication, keeping the biophotons emitted and absorbed by DNA coherent, using external light like lasers or sunlight carefully, optimizing melatonin via natural light cycles.
Light at the cellular level.
And finally, resetting our chronobiology, aligning with sun-moon rhythms, tuning into Earth's Schumann resonance around 7.83 hertz, all aimed at long-term vitality through alignment and coherence.
Creating optimal resonance inside and out. Now, what about engineering infinite energy? What are the ideas there?
This is where we get into some more controversial, less mainstream concepts, but the sources explored them. Coherent tuning to the zero-point field using resonant coils and sacred geometry designs, variations on Tesla coils, Rodin coils, Lakovsky antennas.
Devices based on specific geometries?
That's the idea. Also, phase conjugate mirrors, which might amplify light through feedback loops, potentially generating energy.
Okay.
Water as an energy medium through implosive vortex tech theories about reordering water molecules via specific spirals to release energy.
Vortexes in water.
Yeah. And finally, tuning magnetic spin fields using toroidal alignment and specific magnet configurations, referencing things like the Bedini motor or the Searle effect generator. Again, much of this is still fringe science under investigation.
Definitely fascinating boundary-pushing ideas. The sources then talk about scaling this up a Humanity 2.0. What would that look like?
It's about creating harmonious ecosystems across life. Homes using fractal light-tuned design, golden ratio proportions, balanced EMFs.
And for our bodies.
Practices optimizing breath, movement, light absorption, aligning with our biology's spiral nature, enhancing biophotonics.
Food, power.
Food grown using light, magnetism, vortex water, maybe solar-encoded seeds. Power from toroidal devices, sacred geometry tech, phase-locked free energy systems.
Even AI.
Yeah, evolving towards quantum, coherence-based AI, maybe conscious-like circuits, low entropy processing, perhaps more empathic intelligence. The big picture is a global system of coherent exchange, resonant flow, eliminating waste, maximizing harmony.
A vision of integrated, harmonious tech and nature. Okay, the final section gets really theoretical faster than light concepts, sparked by that listener thought experiment about a perfect tube across light years. Let's get into that.
Yes, that was a really provocative question right at the intersection of quantum mechanics, relativity, and information limits. The idealized tube and could entangle photons inside somehow bypass light speed because of the geometry.
And we know standard physics says entanglement correlations are instant, but you can't send a message faster than light because the outcomes are random, you can't control them.
Right, the no communication theorem. But the listener's intuition was key. Could the perfect geometry itself change how entanglement works in this specific setup?
Suggesting the tube creates a kind of space-time shortcut or bridge, maybe related to wormholes or ER-EPR ideas, not for travel, but for influence.
Exactly. The hypothesis wasn't about sending a spaceship through, but whether this perfect geometric alignment might reveal deeper, non-local connections inherent in the universe's structure.
Suggesting a change at one end could instantaneously affect the other, not by sending info, but by changing the whole system's structural dynamics and challenging us on the math.
Yeah, and a full mathematical proof is, well, currently beyond established physics. Standard quantum mechanics and the no-signaling theorem are pretty robust. To model this, you might need to modify quantum field theory with non-local terms, which is tricky to reconcile with relativity.
But the core idea was that the geometry itself becomes part of the quantum state, creating a coupling in the system's energy description, the Hamiltonian, allowing instant structural shifts.
Precisely. Not sending bits, but a change in a global property of this perfectly coherent system. That opens a theoretical door to apparent FTL effects without breaking relativity's light speed limit for information transfer. Because if the tube and particles act as one unified quantum system due to geometric coherence, a change at one end is instantaneously reflected at the other because the whole system's state evolves together, like wave function collapse, but across macroscopic, geometrically defined distances.
And this led to thinking about a theoretical test. Quantum perfect tube, sensitive detectors, entangled electrons. Look for instant correlations beyond light speed, maybe geometric propagation effects.
Right. The implications would be huge if confirmed. Revising fundamental physics, new quantum tech avenues, cosmological insights.
And the path forward involves scaling tests. Maybe looking for natural analogs in space, material science breakthroughs for that perfect geometry.
Exactly. And ultimately, practical applications would be the strongest proof if we could actually use geometric coherence for instant coordination or influence, assuming it's possible.
Which brought us finally to this idea of geometric coherence as a potential unifier, linking spacetime, energy, info, frequency, vibration. That perfect alignment might create unified quantum states,
Revealing a fundamentally vibrational reality where distance becomes less absolute under these specific geometric conditions. Tapping into a deeper, non-local layer where the universe's interconnectedness is more direct.
a reality where phenomena that seem impossible now might become understandable, maybe even harnessable through perfect geometry.
That's the tantalizing possibility explored at the very edge of these sources.
Wow, what an incredible journey. From designing a balanced garden to speculating about the quantum effects of tubes spanning light years. We've hit on the practical power of light and geometry, their deep physical roots, the elegant math behind them, and these really mind-stretching possibilities at the edge of science.
And it all spun out of that rich collection of sources you provided, weaving together these threads beautifully. It's a vast landscape we've covered, from tangible design rules to the most theoretical physics, all suggesting reality might be more interconnected, more responsive than we usually think.
So a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Given this potential for geometric coherence to reveal hidden connections, what seemingly separate parts of your own life or the world might actually be deeply interconnected in ways you haven't realized?
Yeah, what new possibilities open up if you start looking for those hidden relationships, seeking that perfect alignment, that resonant frequency in your own work, your own life, big or small?
We really encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. Look for the patterns, notice the flow of light, feel for the balance in your world.
Consider how you might apply these principles. The universe seems to speak this fundamental language of light and geometry. Maybe it's time we all tried to become a little more fluent,